Well, it has been a tough year for SMEs, but our next guest saying there is some hope on the horizon. James Beeson is joining us from Earlypay. James, welcome.
Hello Andrew, thank you for having me.
Why has it been such a tough year?
Well, there's been a lot of change. First of all, input costs for SMEs have risen a lot across the board, whether it be wages, rents, insurance, energy prices, the cost of materials, and they haven't been able to pass on those price increases to their customers because it's tough for them as well. So that margin compression has been difficult for SMEs. On top of that, the interest rate environment has also been challenging. There's a lot of uncertainty. As we saw earlier, the RBA is now potentially going to raise rates soonish, after it was looking for a long while there that rates were going to continue lower. And lastly, there's been a lot of regulatory change that SMEs have had to deal with, and they're time constrained and busy people, and anything like that is a distraction for them that takes them away from focusing on their core business.
Are those regulatory changes, how onerous have they been, both I guess time-wise, but also from a monetary point of view too?
I think in isolation, none of them are massive, but the culmination of a few things they build up, especially for small businesses. They don't have the resources to dedicate to sorting these things out. So it means they have to spend time on the weekends to research how to comply with these obligations, or medium-sized businesses have to pay advisors to help them with compliance rather than on more productive things.
Well, I was going to ask you if there's hope into 2026. However, you've just mentioned interest rates. Now, of course, that narrative has changed substantially here locally, with the RBA potentially now hiking rates. Clearly, that is a negative for SMEs.
It really is. It's negative for businesses, but also a lot of SME owners also have mortgages at home, and it's hard to distinguish between work and home for many business owners. So if rates do indeed head up and mortgage repayments rise, as well as interest expense for their businesses, then it kind of puts pressure on from two angles.
I noticed, though, you mentioned that the small business pulse as such, a reading of, I guess, confidence in that sector has actually lifted. Why is that?
It has. That was for the 3 months leading up to November. So I think for the bulk of that sample period, rates, it seemed like they were going to continue lower. So I think that the next quarter will be really interesting to watch, now that the perception is that rates might be heading up next.
So you've come up with something of a Christmas wish list, if you like, for SMEs. What's on the list?
I think the main thing is stability. So if there's a stable economic environment globally, the turmoil in the Middle East and Ukraine and Trump tariffs is very disruptive to SMEs, especially those that import goods and services from overseas. It disrupts the global supply chains and makes it uncertain with regards to getting stock and how much freight costs are and things like that. A stable interest rate environment would also be nice. Not necessarily rates to go down, although that would be great. Just some stability, so business owners can forecast their expenses and have some comfort in the demand from their customers, which are consumers as well as businesses. And a stable regulatory environment, again, just to take some of those big worries off the table, so that business owners can worry about running their businesses.
There's also a change to super in that, rather paying quarterly, now it's every payday. What sort of a burden would that be, I guess, in terms of cash flow?
That's right. So on the 1st of July in 26, business owners will have to pay their super at the same time as they pay their salaries, whereas at the moment they can pay up to 4 weeks later than the end of each quarter. So it really does bring forward the cash outflow relating to super, and at 12% on salaries, now it's meaningful. It really does affect businesses that have high payroll volumes and operate on tight margins, especially businesses like labour hire businesses, where the main thing they do is hire contractors. They pay them weekly or fortnightly, but they might not get paid from their customers for 6 or 8 weeks. So that cash flow gap that they already have, it's going to be made worse by the introduction of payday super, despite it being a great thing. It's a great thing for workers.
Well, and from talking your book at Earlypay there, also you say that there's that need for fairer access to working capital. How critical is that?
It is, and I think when payday super comes in, that's the implications of that, I think, are poorly understood at the moment. And I think as we approach the 1st of July, that will really dawn on a lot of businesses what that means. And it will probably be useful if the government and the ATO gave some clear guidance on what it does mean, so it's not such a shock. And when the 1st of July does come, to be quite lenient with penalties and give businesses some time to transition to that, because it will be a big change. in terms of what we do, we provide invoice finance to SMEs. So we lend against the invoices outstanding to SME customers, and that allows them to get money today instead of having to wait for their customers to pay. So that's a nice tool to help bridge that cash flow gap that I explained.